So they are not, they're not producing the omega-3s that they're supposed to be. So wild caught salmon is the kind that you want to get, and Alaskan salmon. Those are the current recommendations. Of course, things change. But as far as getting a supplement, there are a couple of brands that I trust. And one of those is Nordic Naturals. They're at the top of my list because they manage the entire stream from, what do they call it? Like from boat to bottle, I think is how they've coined it, because they fish for it and they fish out of the Nordic Sea, you know, they've made sure is pure, and then they test the fish for purity. They bottle it in their own factory, and they bottle it with nitrogen to keep it preserved. And they have a guarantee that it's like fish burp free, because apparently if you have that fish burp after taking the supplement, it's not a good quality omega-3. So, you know, that's kind of part of their pitch as well. And they're really easy to find. They tend to be in a lot of health food stores, and they have really great products for both kids and adults. So I would look for the Nordic Naturals brand primarily. And then the other brand that I like is Designs for Health. That tends to be one that is more difficult to find in stores, but it's accessible on my through my website, which I can tell you about at the end. Let's see. Ways to tell if you're deficient in omega-3. If you have uncomfortable or irregular periods, this is a sign of systemic inflammation. You shouldn't have to, periods don't have to be painful. That's sort of a false notion that we've developed. Also, if you're having regular headaches, if you have brain fog, or fatigue, just like chronic fatigue on a daily basis, this is a sign of inflammation that can be addressed with omega-3s. So let's see, in the interest of time, I'm gonna move on to the next major postpartum concern: hormones. Your body is working so hard after birth to rebalance hormones, and this takes months. You can do it you can support it though, and you can support your hormones in going back to normal, because sometimes they won't. If we don't take care of ourselves, they may not ever go back to normal. So you support it twofold: diet and herbs. Herbs are so wonderful at supporting female hormones. And I think it's got to do something with Mother Nature and the intuition of Mother Nature, just understanding what we as mothers need. There's so much power in the plants. And I say that because I've seen that from experience. I've seen how a female can be so completely off balance in many different systems of her body. Like, we're talking symptoms in hormones, symptoms in musculoskeletal pain, mental, you know, so depression and things. And one herb can completely turn that around in a matter of weeks. So I will tell you what herb that is in just 1 second. Diet. So making sure that your diet is rich in colorful vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and clean sources of fat and protein. These all provide building blocks for hormones, and if the building blocks are not there, the hormones are not there. So we support that through our diet. And then for the herb, the specific herb that I love as a go-to for women is chaste tree. And it's also called Vitex. And that's real easy to find as a solo herb. You can take it in capsule form or tincture form. And that is just so supportive for women in all different arenas. You know, peripartum, postpartum, perimenopausal. It's a fantastic herb. As far as specifically postpartum, there is a blend called Femme Rebalance, and it's made by this brand Vitanica. Vitanica is an herbal supplement company that is run by women, and they are so fantastic at putting together herbs that are synergistic for women. They have a women's symmetry multivitamin that I love. But as far as postpartum, Femme Rebalance is wonderful because it contains vitamins and nutrients in addition to herbs. So it's just a great go-to one-stop shop. Hormones are tied very closely to libido, and that brings us to the last topic I want to touch on today, which is sex after pregnancy. So in the months after birth, we are wading through so many different emotional challenges. We have to accept that our body looks different, it feels different, we don't know if it's going to go back to normal, we don't know what normal even is. We're tired, craving some alone time, but at the same time, it's hard to trust someone else the way that we trust ourselves with our baby. So, it's like we're giving to everyone around us and not necessarily getting a lot in return. And oftentimes, sex feels like giving more than it feels like receiving. And so this can be a really difficult it can have a difficult impact, what am I trying to say? The relationship dynamic shifts because we are seeking to be nurtured. And if that doesn't already exist in our sexual relationship, then it's a whole new conversation that needs to be had. So there's a lot to unpack here in this topic alone, but these are conversations that need to be had with our partners. And so in the mini course, we'll talk specifically about conversation starters and how to express what our needs are and how we can get them met, because first we have to figure out what our needs are, and then we have to figure out how to communicate that with our partners. So that's sort of more of a deep dive topic. I am going to stick with surface level things that I can give you today with lots of value to take home. And I want to talk about some topicals and some homeopathic remedies that are great for repairing the libido. So one of the main issues in this arena is that we have a lot of discomfort after birth. We're healing. The tissue around the vulva is very sensitive and takes time to repair, and with our hormonal changes, we can be experiencing pain with sex. We can be experiencing dryness and discomfort and oversensitivity. And so what we can do to help with this is apply a topical cocoa butter. And it's very difficult to find a cocoa butter that doesn't have a lot of additives in it, but is still smooth enough to apply topically. So I found this one a couple years ago, and it's like a tiny little shop, and you can only find them on Facebook. It's Rose of Sharon, and Rose as in R-O-S-E, the flower. Rose of Sharon Cocoa Butter Cream. And you can contact her and order it directly from her website. But I have chosen this one to recommend to you because I've just seen it work. And I've had a lot of other female practitioners who focus on women's health say this stuff is just awesome. There's nothing else like it. So I would encourage you to look into that. But also be aware that there are other topicals out there that can be used. And there are even some suppositories out there that can be used that have a little bit of natural occurring hormone in it as well that can also help stimulate healing in the tissue. That's made by Bezwecken brand, and maybe I can put that in the chat for you afterwards. So Bezwecken is the brand. I know you can get it from my online medicinary. I'm not sure where else you can find it, but they make really great suppositories as well to help healing. And it would be like a suppository that you use once daily for about 7 days, and then you're done. And then I want to tell you about a couple of homeopathic remedies that I love that help with the emotional level. Because a lot of times the reason that we don't want to engage in intimacy is because we're either feeling just really disconnected, maybe apathetic, maybe sort of like pitiful. We kind of start to feel sorry for ourselves, or we feel like I'm just in this rut, or I don't feel attractive. That can cause those feelings of disconnectedness with our partners. And if that's the nature of our feeling, then sepia is the perfect remedy for that. SEPIA. And I would recommend the 30C potency. If you're not familiar with homeopathy, it's in the little blue tubes that you can buy at your health food store. They're little tiny white pellets, and you would take about 3 or 5 of them at a time and do that once daily. The bottles typically say take 5 of them and take it like, they'll say different things, but they'll usually say to take it a lot, like every 2 hours or something. They do that because the FDA requires them to put something on the label, and that's just what they do, because typically for people who are buying homeopathy off the shelves, it's for an acute concern, and so that's why you would dose it more often. This is more of an acute concern, and so it would be just sort of a daily dose. And sepia is great for feelings of apathy also towards our children. Like if we're just feeling like sort of that, what most people would call postpartum depression. If we're just feeling like I need to be alone, I don't want to be around my kids right now, I've just been working too hard, I'm pulling from an empty well, those are all feelings that are well treated by sepia. Nat myrrh, or Natrum muriaticum. Let me just throw both of these in the chat box real quick before I forget. Natrum muriaticum is another homeopathic remedy that's great for more of the irritability picture. So if you're someone who is just finding that every little thing is annoying you, you're yelling a lot, maybe you have like a constant dull headache or like a hammering type headache, aggravated by heat is another big one. If you feel like you can't stand being in the sun, these are all things that are really well treated by nat myrrh if you're hot and sweaty and just annoyed. Homeopathy, I could go on and on about that. There are so many different levels on which homeopathy can be helpful for moms as we're working through the different postpartum phases. So if this is you and you feel like, I kind of maybe could be sepia, or I kind of maybe could be nat myrrh, but not quite, and you need more help with that, just reach out to me because I can help you figure out the right remedy. The thing about homeopathy is that if it's not the right remedy, it won't work. It doesn't cause harm. That's the wonderful thing about homeopathy. You don't get the adverse side effects. So is it worth a shot? Yes, absolutely. But if you don't get the results, it's not because homeopathy doesn't work. It's because it just wasn't the right remedy for what you're experiencing. So you need some help from a pro. So there's also a huge mindset piece around libido, of being comfortable with the body that you're in. And many of my colleagues in this retreat are specializing in that. So I strongly encourage you to look into the pelvic floor exercises, the counseling, those pieces, the mindset around how we feel in our body, in our skin, is the most important thing to address in postpartum libido. And having the tough conversations with your partner, letting them know how you feel. And like I said, we'll dive into that more in the mini course when we have more time. So this is why I structure my postpartum visits differently. Even though my practice is pediatric focused, infant health is almost entirely dependent on your health as the mother. So each time I have a well child visit with a baby, I check in on the mother's health as well. We kind of divide it half and half. So I give her nutrition plans, high potency supplements, a lot like the ones we talked about, and hormone support. And we talk about things like depression, anxiety, and intimacy. And we counsel about how we can structure her life to feel more supported and less drained. You all deserve the same attention. Being a mom is the hardest job there is. And I really hope that this virtual retreat opens your eyes to some areas in your life that you can improve on and take care of yourself and be an advocate for yourself. So thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I went a few minutes over, but I am happy to take questions if we have time.
I typed in the chat too to see if there's any questions. I haven't seen any come through yet.
I was just going to ask, instead of saying, because it's kind of, would you recommend just kind of like overall, like taking the sepia and the natural, or would you recommend taking them together? Or is it okay to take them together? I guess is more.
It's okay. It is okay. Generally with homeopathy, I just recommend one at a time. Yeah. So you could try one, give it a shot for a few days. Generally, if it's going to work, you're going to see a change within a few days. And then if that is not causing a shift for you, then to try something different. Yeah, absolutely.
And then Mihoko asked in the chats, what herb do you recommend for moms wanting to increase their milk supply?
Fennel. Fennel is a wonderful, wonderful herb. So funiculum vulgar, I'll put that in the chat. That's the plant species you want to look for. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Vitanica has a lactation blend that you can get.
Awesome. And then Danica asked if you could just briefly explain how homeopathy works.
Yeah. So homeopathy, the premise behind it is like curing like, and I'm trying not to go down too much of a rabbit hole here. So basically the way homeopathy works is it draws attention in your body to the imbalance so that your body can then make the adaptation in the direction that you need to go. So one way that I describe it to people is that it's kind of like if you're just off orbit a little bit, like something's just a little off, and you're orbiting in the wrong direction, and this becomes your norm. Homeopathy helps you get back into that like regular rotation. And the way that it works is a great example would be like coffee. So what happens if we drink too much coffee? We're completely wired. We can't focus, can't sleep, of course. And so a homeopathic treatment for that, for those symptoms, would be coffee. The treatment would be, it's called coffea. And what it is, though, is a super, super micro potency. It's been so diluted hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of times over to the point where if you look at it under a microscope, there are no visible molecules there. But the essence is still there, and the intelligence has the ability to tell our cells how to behave and snap them out of it. And it works. And it's something that is difficult for mainstream, scientific minds to accept because they can't see it under the microscope. And this is something that was even difficult for me to accept at first. When I went to ND school, I said, I'm cool with studying everything, but I don't want to study homeopathy. That's not my thing. Those are the weirdos of the weirdos. And now I saw it work, and I couldn't ignore it because I saw it curing things that had been addressed by multiple other supplements and other natural approaches and still weren't responding. And then homeopathy sealed the deal. So it's really, really powerful. Thank you for asking that question.
So then real quick to follow up on that. So is it something that you would just take like for a short time and then your body kind of picks up what it needs and then you're good to go from there, or do you have to take it,
It depends on the issue and it depends on the person. Some people are more sensitive and they can take one dose and it catapults them into that proper orbit and they don't even need another dose. Typically in our society, what we're dealing with is issues that keep on aggravating us every day. And when we have those same stimuli attacking us, we kind of need the remedy to be consistent with us as well to help combat that. And so modern day approach to homeopathy is typically giving it every day for a period of months. And children tend to respond really quickly. So I see them on it for maybe 6 months or more, 6 to 12 months. And then we tend to kind of work through it and resolve it. And they don't need to take it anymore. Adults, they can be a little bit more difficult. We've been a little more abused and scarred, and it takes time.
Awesome.
Good questions.
So
Any other questions?
I don't see any other ones in the chat. But if there are more questions, I'm putting her website in the chat now if you want to connect with her. And then also do know that she's going to be going into depth with videos and content in our How to Thrive Postpartum course. So we're really excited about that. She's going to be talking about a lot of the things that she covered today, but just full on in. So that's going to be really exciting. Yep. And thank you so much, Dr. Hollister. I was like writing down things as well, even for myself and the eye thing. Yeah. So
I learned a lot too in putting the talk together. So it was great. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we're going to go ahead and switch over now to Danica Donnelly. Danica is the co-creator of How to Thrive Postpartum with me and one of my dearest friends. She's also a birth and family photographer. She's honestly like my favorite artist in the world. She is so gifted and just and she just creates awesome memories for families. So she's going to be talking about how to create more happiness with photography in your home and happiness. Danica, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try and figure out how to share my screen, and hopefully this works. Okay. Okay, are you seeing my slides and everything now? Or my whole screen?
You're good. We're seeing your whole screen.
The whole screen? Okay. Let me see. Okay, we're good. Yeah? Okay, hopefully this is working. Just let me know if it's not. But, so I am a birth and family photographer, family bonding photographer, like Kirsten said. I live in Colorado Springs, and I've been a birth photographer for 10 years and a family bonding photographer for 14. So I photograph families, including pregnancy, postpartum, newborns, adoptions, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I started attending births before I had my own babies, which is kind of a unique situation. I got to kind of see other people go through it before I did. So I felt like I really prepared for birth, and I went to births and I read books and I talked to my friends and I asked questions of the birth professionals that I was connected with through my work. And I had these beautiful unmedicated water births that were just awesome, but I didn't spend really hardly any time preparing for postpartum. So when that fourth trimester came, I just felt so unprepared. And it just kind of really hit me with an intensity that I didn't expect. Soon after I had my first baby, my husband started law school and he was also working full time. So he would be gone in the morning before I woke up and he would get home after I was in bed. So I pretty much only saw him on Sundays, and I really felt like a single parent. And, for our first kid, it was a lot to kind of navigate. Plus I had my own busy photography business to keep afloat, and no family in town to help out. So it just felt like a huge weight of responsibility. And I felt this big weight to like take care of this kid and, be his everything. And just how do you do it all? I had no idea. I felt totally overwhelmed. So during that time, we were also having a ton of financial struggles, and our cars were breaking down every few weeks, which is, stressful in itself. I had zero self-care routine. Every ounce of my time was going into trying to keep my baby alive and happy. And he was a colicky baby, so he cried all the time, which was a huge point of stress for me. He was also 10 pounds when he was born. So it was pretty much like I had this toddler that I had to, carry on my body all the time to keep him happy. And really bad diastasis recti, which I didn't even realize was a thing until I realized I could stick my whole fist inside of my body and feel my organs. And I just knew that like something was not right, but I didn't know what it was. And, that caused, your core is your whole support system. So that separation and weakness in my core gave me issues with my back, and my back went out on me a few times that first year. So it was just a whole cacophony of things. And I didn't even realize, I was struggling with postpartum anxiety until I had my first ever panic attack when my son was 6 months old. I was home alone, sick with the flu, and just overwhelmed with, all the things happening. And when the panic attack started, I didn't know what was going on because I had never had one before. My muscles seized up. I couldn't move my hands. It felt like my lungs were collapsing. And I was truly convinced that if help didn't arrive in 3 minutes, I would be dead. So that was really scary and a huge wake-up call that something needed to change, that I needed help, I needed support, that this 4th trimester is no joke. So I started prioritizing my self-care. I started taking care of my mental health. I stopped taking on too many things, stopped saying yes to everything, started exercising. And I mean, all of this is to tell you my story, my postpartum journey, and why I partnered with Kirsten on this, because it's just so important to bring all these professionals and all this support to postpartum women. So slowly I started getting better bit by bit as I started taking care of myself and becoming educated and healing my diastasis and all that stuff. But when I started coming out of the fog of my postpartum, I saw my friends starting to go through this too. And I saw them having these emotional and mental breakdowns. And I just knew we could do better for our society, that women needed this. They needed this support, this education, and that Kirsten and I had to do our best to create this platform that would help bring the education to women that our culture is lacking. So that's why we're all here and, educating ourselves with all these professionals, which is so, so great. So since I'm a birth and family photographer, one area of self-love that I started incorporating into my life is seeing joy in my motherhood through photography. So that not only meant, taking pictures of my kids, but also including myself in the pictures so that I could look back and remember the happy times and the good times with them, and so that they could look back on their childhood and remember all those positive experiences together. So there's actually research that shows the benefits to kids of seeing themselves in pictures. So this here on the left is my son when he was 9 months old, and now he's going to be 7 in a few weeks, which is just crazy. But when they see pictures of themselves wrapped in a warm embrace with mom, or reading a book with dad, wrestling with their brother, having tea parties with their sister, all that stuff, is so helpful to them to know that deep down there's a place where they belong. You know, we all have this deep need for belonging and to know that we belong somewhere. And when kids see pictures of themselves with their family, it really reinforces that sense of belonging, which is so important for our identity as kids and our confidence and our character and the way that we view the world and our sense of worthiness. All those things are so core and so ingrained in us at such a young age. So that's why it's really important for me to have pictures of myself with my kids. So I really try to get in the shot. You know, I don't do it as much as I should probably, but whenever I can, I try and get in the shot. And it takes a few more steps to, you know, set up a tripod or the self timer and get in there. And, you know, normally I don't feel photo ready or, you know, like I look good in a photo, but I know that it's so important for me looking back and my kids and to think of that future for them. I really try and get in the pictures. So in my course with Thrive Postpartum, I teach you how to get in the picture, how to either use a self timer or a remote control or use your phone to be a remote control with your camera so that you can get in the pictures with your kids. It's also important to print out your pictures and have them available for your kids to see. So whether it's wall art or albums or prints, that's really valuable for them to have access to it. I know that sometimes we print really nice albums and then we don't want our kids to look at them, but even if you make a nice copy for yourself and then kind of a cheaper copy for them that they can just look through, like that's so valuable. And I'll show you some examples at the end. So my 3-year-old, he's a super active kid and it's hard for him to sit still. But it was so crazy. I feel like the first time he sat still for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, was when he was looking through our photo album. And he just loves looking at all the faces, you know, talking about the memories, asking questions about the people and the activities. And I can just see the wheels turning in his head that he's absorbing all of those people and all of those relationships and connections. And I can tell that the photos are writing a story for him of how much he's loved and what a great childhood he's having and all of the people who he's connected with, all of the relationships that he has. It's reminding him over and over that he belongs in our family and that we love him, that he's safe here, that he can be his silly, wild self climbing on the sink, and that's totally okay and fun. And I'd be curious if anybody else has noticed that with their kids, if they notice them, you know, looking at pictures of themselves, if they love looking at pictures of themselves or, you know, family members, people that they know. If you watch, like, they really enjoy it. It's pretty cool to see. So I'm not saying that kids need or that they need photos of themselves to be loved, but it's just one way to build those feelings in them and reinforce that connection and that bonding and that relationship. As people, we live in a 3-dimensional world, and it's so hard to step outside of ourselves and look at ourselves in our own life. So when kids look at a photo of themselves with their family, it makes these new neural pathways in their brain where they can actually see how they fit in the family. And it's really important for adopted kids too, to see from the outside in, like, where they fit and to see their family as a unit in like a concrete, tangible way instead of this abstract way of, you know, moving through the world. And it helps them see themselves through our eyes and how much we love them and how much we enjoy them. You know, when we're hugging them in the pictures, they get that connection and they can start seeing themselves like through our eyes and the love that we have for them. So yeah, in the Thrive course, I've got a whole course or module on photography, and it gives lots of really practical tips on how to take better pictures. how to find good lighting, how to look for good emotional moments with your kids, even if it's the mundane day-to-day activities. Like we were just sitting here playing with a humidifier, but the mist was cool and we were having a fun moment. I was like, grabbed my camera, how to get low so that you're getting different perspectives, how to use angles, all that kind of stuff, and how to edit your pictures, where to get them printed. It's like start to finish, how to bring photography into your home and take better pictures. So also, I feel like photography, learning how to take good pictures of your kids is a lifelong skill that, you know, you can enjoy now and forever. The more you do it, the better you get. And, you know, it's a gift to your kids and a gift to you in the future. So I'm sure you can all identify with this, but before I became a mom, I feel like now every single photo in my camera roll is of my kids pretty much. And I don't know what I took pictures of before I had kids. Well, actually, it was probably my dog, but before that, you know, so we're always using our phones and taking pictures of our kids. And if we can learn just a few simple ways to take better pictures, it really improves everything. And another small tip, and I share this in the course too, but one practical thing that you can take home and start doing right away is whenever I go into families' homes to photograph them, I always turn off all of the indoor lights, because the inside light has this yellow cast to it generally, and the outside light from the windows coming in is a blue cast. And so in your photos, it creates these blue and yellow lights in these conflicting colors. So I always recommend just turn off all of your lights in your home and use the window light as your natural ambient light source. And that really improves images right away. Yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen, and then I have just a couple of examples of like ways that I print photos to have for my kids. So we have some pictures on our walls of our family, but just having like a family photo album that you can set out and like let your kids pour through it. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy or like, you know, fancy designs, just like one picture per page. And my kids will sit and look at this for hours. Or if we're going to be in the car for a long time, I always bring this book so my little 3-year-old can look through this and just pour over the images, and it keeps him quiet and engaged for a long time. And then another thing I do, I just print like little, you know, 4x6s and have them in a little stand that I set out, and they pick this up and they just look through the pictures. And, you know, if this gets crushed or ruined or whatever, no big deal, 20 cents and buy a new one, you know. But it's just really helping them, like, you know, when he's looking at that picture of himself with his family, he's like, I belong in this family. My parents love me. It's just reinforcing all of that connection and bonding. So yeah, that's what I have. I don't know if anybody has questions.
I have one.
Yeah.
I know that you often use like a regular, or not a regular camera, but like a professional camera. What are some tips for just using like your cell phone?
Yeah. So in the course, I definitely talk about like if you have a fancy camera, if you have a DSLR, or just using your phone. So one cool thing that maybe a lot of people don't know about, let's see if I can show an example. So when you're using your phone, to change the lighting, see how it's like really bright in the background and then my face is a lot darker? So you can press and hold, maybe it's not really showing so well, but if you press and hold and say you want the light to be exposed properly in the background, see how my face got a little darker? It should lock in. Okay, well, it's not really working to show it this way, but you press and hold where you want the light to be properly exposed. So it should get brighter or darker depending on where you are pressing and holding. And then when you hold, it like locks in the exposure on that spot. But just another thing I recommend is like getting low to the action. So your kids, instead of always standing and taking a picture down like at them, to get low to the action with your camera and kind of square up to them. Or even just with your camera when your kids are playing or you want to capture a moment, take your camera and just kind of walk around and see like what angle is going to look good. If there's clutter in the background, you can get low and kind of use their body to block the clutter. So I do a lot of like cleaning in my photos just by moving my body instead of tidying up the area. And that's something too that stops a lot of moms like, oh, my house isn't clean or this area is a mess or whatever. Just move your body and kind of angle yourself in your position so that you cut out that clutter without doing any cleaning work. It's brilliant.
I think that's like the best advice ever. Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, opening up my eyes. I always have never liked to be in photos. I always just want to take pictures of my kids. And I think a lot of moms feel that same way. So it's important to make sure that we're included in it and not taking pictures because the situation's not perfect. So.
Right. I mean, I definitely think that part of a reason I'm a photographer is I do not like being in pictures. I kind of hide behind the camera. But I've noticed every time, even when I was taking pictures for the course that I created for Thrive, I was like, ooh, I don't feel like I'm ready to be in a photo. But I would still get in, and then looking at them, I'm like, these are lovely. This is our life. This is totally fun and fine. And who I am, I don't need to be, perfect to be in these photos with my kids. And they're going to appreciate that now and in the future. And they're going to love that they have pictures with their parents.
Yeah, totally. And I like how you were saying like how the kids can look at the photos and like feel like, yes, I belong here. I feel loved. But I feel like even as moms, it's like, yes, this is my family. Like I helped create this and this is where I belong. Like it's so good for everybody to ground ourselves in that.
Yeah. And also I know in the chaos of life, as a mom, it can feel overwhelming and chaotic. And then I look at these pictures, a moment of us like with the humidifier, and it's like, we have these sweet little tender moments in the midst of the chaos. And it's good to remind myself, like, I'm a good mom. I'm doing a good job. We're having, good, happy moments together and good adventures and in the tent. And yeah, it just reinforces all those positive feelings for me too, and my kids. So
totally. Well, thank you so much. Danica also, like she's mentioned earlier, is going to be having a in-depth photography guide in our Thrive postpartum course that's going to cover everything you need to know with a expensive camera or your cell phone on how to take amazing photos of you and your family. So that's really exciting. And she also talks a lot about like creating these really sweet, tender, peaceful moments in your family, which I think we all can use sometimes, especially when life is chaotic. So yeah, I won't like dive into what she did for us in our photography session that we did with her, but it's something that we still do just to like reconnect as a family. And she talks about that in her course. So it's really, really awesome. If there's no questions, I'll stay on here for a second. If there's any questions.
I have.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Danica, did you teach your husband how to take some pictures as well? Or is it mostly like tripod?
Good question. So actually, if I want a good photo, I give it to my almost 7-year-old. He takes better pictures than my husband. Because my husband, I'll get it back and it'll be, like focused in the background or blurry or just like, I'm like, thanks, good try. But so that's like a huge reason why I figured out like a tripod and a self timer. And I have like a remote control, or my phone acts as a remote control for one of my cameras. So I do that instead of my husband. He's very skilled at other things, but he's not a photographer.
That's good that your son can, do that. That's awesome. But thank you so much, because I didn't want to be in a picture, myself. And my younger one is 7. So, it's never too late, right? So I'm going to try to get in those pictures. And yeah, that was a huge take home. So thank you so much.
Cool.
Let's see. There's a question in the chat. Says, any photos taken at birth that you recommend to for sure try and get?
So Bree, are you talking, so, you know, being a birth photographer, are you talking about hiring somebody and like wanting them to get certain pictures, or are you talking about you yourself getting pictures? Oh, okay, cool. So she's doing a water birth at home and her sister is taking pictures. So for me personally, when I'm at a birth taking pictures, I really look for emotion and connection. So things that I'm drawn to are like your partner, his hands on you, the emotional moments. I'm kind of like anticipating those times of connection because I feel like birth is such a time too. It's such a transition and a huge experience into parenthood and with each new child. And like personally, I really want to look back at those pictures and be like, we worked as a team through this. Like for example, my husband, he's not a touchy person. Physical touch is not his love language, but in my birth photos, he's touching me in almost every picture. And honestly, I don't remember that. I don't remember him touching me at all. You know, I was so focused on the task at hand, and it's really cool to look back on those pictures and see his connection with me. So that, and then like emotion, especially right after baby comes, like the emotion of mom and dad and baby. And then also any sort of details, you know, if siblings are there, what they're doing, how they respond. Another one of my favorite pictures, which I think was in my photo slide, but my older son was at the birth of his younger brother, and he's touching me like when I'm giving birth to my placenta. Touch is his love language, and he's touching me and like supporting me and helping me deliver my placenta. And then during contractions, he was holding my hands, and like the pain just disappeared when he was holding my hands, which was so cool. So just looking for all of those. For me, it's like people and their connection and their emotions and those kind of moments. But then also details, the clock, or, you know, if something happens that you think that the mom might want to remember that's going on around her that she might not be aware of at the time. I feel like those are cool things to give her as part of her story. Yeah.
That's so exciting. That's so exciting that you're having a water birth, Bree.
Yeah, so cool. When are you due? I'm curious.
Due date. Give us the due date.
Oh, like a month.
That's super exciting. That's awesome that your sister's doing it too. That's like intimate.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. We're open to all forms of women, naked or clothed, but probably good that you kept your camera off. That's so cute. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I know some people hopped on here late and they were concerned because they missed part of Dr. Hollister's talk, but we did record it. I started it a little late because I have brain fog and I need to get my supplements. So, but the really nitty gritty parts are recorded all the way up until now. So we'll be sending out recordings at the end of the retreat to everybody's emails. And then make sure that if you are here and you want to be involved in the giveaway for the free course, that you're typing here in the chat so I can keep track of who is wanting that and who is been attending. Esther, clothed or not clothed, you are on it. So, oh, sorry, Bree, you're here too every day. So that's awesome. And then tomorrow is another exciting day. So make sure that you're following us on Instagram and that you're seeing our schedule that will be posted. And then this evening, the speakers will be announced in your email as well. So stay tuned. And thank you everybody for coming this morning. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye everyone. I'm going to stay on here so everyone can stay here.